Hi, and welcome to my channel. It is Monday morning, and you're going to see this in just a few hours. I never do this. I always film at the end of the week or over the weekend and edit everything, and then it goes up on Monday with me not having to do all this. But I was gone this weekend, and so I got back yesterday afternoon, and I just could not film. Anyway, this is coming to you on the day that I'm filming, which is really weird. But anyway, that means that I had some extra days of reading before I filmed, so I read a lot of books. So the main thing I'm going to do is go through all the books that I finished and not really talk about what's coming up next. I might mention a couple, but I won't go through as many as I usually do. So let's just jump right in. First thing I'm going to show you is I got something in the mail. I normally do book hauls, and I'm not going to talk about this in a book haul because it's the only thing that I've gotten recently. But in March for the 1001 book club, book countdown club, book club, I don't know what it's called. It's on Sandy's channel, Miss Reads a Lot. I'll put the links down below. But we're reading War and Peace. And y'all, this book is the biggest thing I've ever seen. Like, it's 1,300 pages, and I've read an 1,100 page book, but it did not seem this big. So that came in the mail, and I am blown away with how big it is. I also added it all up. I've even got a bookmark right here in the front part, very first page, and I have to read 44 pages a day in order to finish this in the month of March. And so that is the plan. We will see how it goes, but that is the plan right now. And speaking of bookmarks, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. I got all of these bookmarks from an Etsy shop, not in the US, but I found her on Instagram. So I will link hers below. She has some of them based on books and series. And anyway, lots of bookmarks. And I got a lot. So now I have plenty of bookmarks to use. Okay, so let's jump into the books. The first thing I finished was From Blood and Ash. I'm not really going to go into this. There is a 24-hour reading vlog specifically for this book. Let's just say that I ended up not liking it very much, and I gave it 3 stars. So, or maybe 3.5. I don't even remember, but I will link that above, and you can go watch. Then I finished MS-13. This was about, well, the byline on it says the making of America's most notorious gang. And it's really just talking about how the gang started and what the difference is in the way that it is run in South America and the way that it is run in America, in the United States. And just the difference even from East Coast to West Coast and how it kind of spread and what all it entails. And so in this book, he picks a few people, some people that started out in El Salvador in the gang and moved to the United States, some people that were already in the States when they joined the gang, and just kind of how the whole evolution of the gang came about. And it is very interesting. I mean, it's a nonfiction book about a gang creation. So it has in it what you would assume it has in it. But I like the way he did it by following certain people, and we see what happened to them, or kind of how they joined up and what they did at the beginning and how that developed as they got older in the gang. Then I read The Elvis Room by Stephen Graham Jones. This is on Kindle Unlimited, if you have Kindle Unlimited, and it's only 44 pages. But it felt so much longer than that. Like, it felt like such an in-depth story for there to only be 44 pages. So if you're looking for a good short story novella type situation, go check out The Elvis Room, especially if you have Kindle Unlimited. So The Elvis Room, which I don't know if this is a real thing, but he claims that hotels hold back one room all the time just in case somebody famous pulls up. And then they have a room for this person, and they call it the Elvis Room. So I don't know that. I have not worked in a hotel. I don't know anybody who has, really. So I don't know if that's true or not. Y'all can let me know. But anyway, this is a little bit of a twist on that, and things happen with this main character. That's all I'm going to say. Then I finally finished Insomnia by Stephen King. I have been reading this book for what feels like months, and maybe it has been. It's been a really long time. But it was so good. I don't know why I didn't just pick it up and read it. But in this book, there's a man whose wife is dying of cancer. And so he can't, not because of that, he can't sleep, but he's not sleeping. And he quickly discovers that there is another world, and because he hasn't been able to sleep, he can get glimpses of that other world. And then more things happen as we go through, and he finds out that somebody in the background, like the secondary story in this whole thing, is that this woman is coming to town to give a speech about abortion and abortion rights. And there is one group in the town that is anti-abortion, and they're protesting and doing all this stuff. And then there's the other group that's pro, and they're doing all this stuff. And so anyway, that's happening in the background of him not being able to sleep and realizing that there's another world out there that people can't see. So I really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like a Stephen King book. I mean, parts of it did, but this, I feel like, is just any kind of thriller that could have been written by anybody. But again, though, I guess it did feel like him because the characters are great. And I think that's what he is great at, is making good characters. All right. The next book that I finished was Closer to Nowhere. This was actually the poetry read that came up when I was flipping my cards in the card game last month when I did my TBR. And so this is a book in verse, and it is about a boy whose mom dies, and he gets taken away from his dad, and he moves in with his mom's twin sister and her family. So she has a husband and she has a daughter, and the son and the boy and the daughter are the same age. And so it's about them, it's told from the point of view of the two kids. So we get some poems from his point of view and some poems from her point of view. And it is so powerful. Like, it is all about forming new bonds, how you feel when you're just out of control and you don't know how to rein in your emotions. And because of the things that he had gone through, like, he just had certain things that he has to deal with all the time. And so I really enjoyed it. There's an author note at the back where she talks about her experience with one of her children who inspired all the other books that she's written. She's written a whole series. I know one of them is Crank, and there's Crash. And so anyway, it's about her daughter dealing with drug addiction. And so this book is primarily written for her grandson, who kind of grew up in that environment and is now being raised by them, and the things that he's had to deal with and overcome. And so I really enjoyed it. I mean, it can be read as a middle grade book. I'm sure that it would bring up a lot of good discussions all the way up to adults. Like, I really liked it. So, switching gears to sci-fi, the next thing that I finished was Sunreach, which is the novella for the Skyward series that we are reading for this month over on Kate's Discord. So I'll link that below. And we are just working our way through each of the novellas every month. And so the original series, the books 1 and 2, Skyward and Starsight, have both been about Spensa. And we leave her in a certain place at the end of Starsight, and she's not on their core planet detritus, where they start out on. And so this book is about FM, or it focuses on FM. That's her call sign for the one of the people in Spensa's Skyward flight. And so it kind of just deals with her, but they're also at the same time, which is one thing that I love about it, is the big storyline, which is that Spensa's looking for a hyperdrive. That's the whole point of what she's doing. And so we're learning about the hyperdrives, and things are happening back on the planet, on detritus, and not just about like this one little novella. Like, it's still moving along the overall storyline, which I really like. And so next month we're reading the next novella, and then I think there's one more novella, or maybe it's Titanic after that. I don't remember how many, but we're reading one a month. So if you want to join in, come to Kate's Discord and we'll talk about it. Then I finished Waking Ursa Minor. This is a debut novel, self-published, and it comes out tomorrow. I was blown away by this book. I started reading it, and I tried to give myself a lot of time to read it so I could read a little bit every day. It just kept getting more and more epic, by the time I was done, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an epic fantasy. But when it started, I didn't think that's what it was. It started with Sarah Kayla, who, I don't know how you say her name. Sarah is what I called her the whole time. I gave everybody like little nicknames. We've been discussing this on Leslie's Discord channel, so I'll link that down below. And if you're going to be reading it, it's great. Also, Helen, the author, is on Instagram, and I think she's on Twitter as well, and she posted on there and said, does anybody want a ARC copy of this? This is also available on NetGalley, and so that's where I went and got it from NetGalley. I also got a copy from Helen on ebook, and I ordered my own physical version, pre-ordered it, and it's coming out tomorrow, so it should be coming to me once it comes out tomorrow. So I am so excited about this book. But anyway, back to Sarah. Sarah at the beginning is in an orphanage, and she's a little bit too old for it, but she doesn't have anywhere to go. And she doesn't have parents. She doesn't know where her parents, what happened to them or anything. So she's just kind of helping out at this orphanage, and things happen, and the lady in charge of the orphanage was like, oh my gosh, here's everything that your parents left for you. You got to go because I think somebody's trying to kill you. And then the whole thing just blows up from there. We have shapeshifters, we have mermaids, we have flying ships at one point. Like, this book is awesome, and it has so many things. And not only that, but it has the characters that I did not want to love. Like, I kept thinking, I'm not going to fall for this person. This is a bad person. And then I was so sad when things happened to them. So the characters, the adventure, the epicness of this fantasy, it's perfect. I loved it so much. Then I read, this was when my drive started for my trip, and I listened to The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This was just as cute as everybody said. Like, I love fake dating. I love it. If somebody says to me, this book has fake dating, that's all I need to know about it. I don't even care anything else about it. I'll read it. I love it. I've always loved it. It's always been one of my favorite romance tropes, and it will continue to be forever and ever. Like, I love fake dating trope. I don't know why I like it so much, but I do. Anyway, so this had a lot of those same things. Forced proximity, although I loved that it kept making fun of those romantic tropes, because he was like, well, you can share my hotel room. I got a double. And she's like, no, there'll only be one bed. And he's like, no, I got a double. It'll have 2 beds. And she's like, okay, clearly you've never seen a rom-com because there will only be 1 bed. It was just funny like that, like making fun of the same tropes that it was doing. Although, spoiler alert, there was more than 1 bed. But anyway, I liked that the third act breakup didn't seem as forced as some of the other ones have been in the past. And that we got to just see their friends. I loved their friends that were around them as the 2 of them were going through here. So we have a doctoral candidate and a doctor. I don't know what he's doing. He sponsors some of the candidates, but anyway, he didn't sponsor her. She's not one of his. So they're able to fake date because he's not her advisor. And so he's doing work with his research assistants, and she's a research assistant for another one of the doctors. So they are biologists, and that's what they're doing. So it's really cool. They talk a little bit about what she's doing and why she's doing it, and that part was really interesting. And then at the end, there's an author's note talking about her life in STEM and how she's been working in STEM and how that affected the stuff that she writes. And I also got an email from Amazon, and she's going, well, it was specifically from Audible. She has written 3 or 4 novellas, and they're all releasing. They may already be out, but I think they're not coming out until March. Or there might be one a month, like February, March, April, May, something like that. So anyway, if you're a giant Ali Hazelwood fan, go check that out. They're all STEM-related romance novellas. So just thought I would throw that out there. Then I read Finlay Donovan is Killing It. I feel like this is everywhere, and because I saw how popular it was, I went to NetGalley and requested book 2, and I got approved, which I didn't think would happen. And so since I got approved, I was like, well, let me bump Finlay up my list. I had it on my list, but it wasn't up at the top because I didn't think I would get book 2, and I did. So I listened to book 1 on the way driving, and it was annoying to me at first. I was very upset with Finlay at the beginning. Like, I feel like I know what you're doing as a writer. You need to establish your main character has a no way out kind of feeling, like no hope, and they need help or things are going to be really bad. But as a like human being, she let things get too bad in her life without asking for help. She kept like relying on her ex-husband and not going, okay, clearly what I'm doing is not working. And if I want me and my children to be able to eat and stay in my house, then I need to pivot and do something else. And she didn't do that. She just kept going until it was too bad. And it just made me angry. I wanted her to be smarter than that. And the rest of the book, though, after that initial, like, I need to make her so bad, that the catalyst that happens at the beginning of every book is enough to make her go. Like, we all know this woman is a writer. She's sitting with her literary agent at Panera Bread, and somebody overhears them talking about the book synopsis and thinks that Finlay is a hit man, hit woman. I don't know what you call it, but she slides her a note across the table that says, I need you to take care of my husband. And thus begins the whole thing. But I realized that the writer was trying to make Finlay be in such a desperate situation that she would even show up to the place where the husband was, not with the intent to kill him, but just going there in general has to be bad enough. Her situation has to be bad enough that she would go and do that. But it made Finlay seem like an irresponsible person and really a bad parent. And I did not like it. I didn't like the setup at the beginning. The rest of the book was great. And now that she's established and we know what's going on with her and her little sidekick, Vera, I think it's going to be great. And I am so looking forward to book 2. So it was a really good book. And it really is, I, for some reason, thought there was going to be romance in here. It's really just a mystery. It's just setting up a mystery character that can continue going for, I don't know how many books, however many books she wants to do. It can just keep going. So I really enjoyed it. Then I read Portrait in Death by J.D. Robb. This was my in-death book for the week. And this one was very cool. Portrait, it was because there was a photographer was the killer. And he would kill people by drugging them. And so while they were semi-conscious, he posed them in certain ways. And then he would like connect wires to them to make them stay posed as they died. And he just took pictures of them the whole time as they were dying. And so the whole premise and setup of it was really cool. But of course, Eve doesn't want these people to die. So she's trying to solve the crime and figure out what's going on. And the background story in this one is Rourke's mom. So this whole time, since he was a little kid, everybody said, your mom ran away. This is her name. She ran away. Well, somebody comes to visit him and is like, I knew your mom. That's not who she is. Thus begins a whole search for Rourke that was great. Like, we got to see parts of Rourke that we just haven't seen before, and I really, really liked it. Okay, then I switched again to a little fantasy book called The Book of Three. And this is part of my 100 Best Fantasy from Klaus. And it was just a cute little book. Like, it was really short. I think I listened to it on audio, and it was like 5 hours long maybe. And it's just one of those middle grade fantasy, like beginning an epic journey kind of fantasy books. And we start out with a boy who's being raised by someone who's not his parents, and he's kind of teaching him things from the Book of Three, but he doesn't want to tell him too much, and he's not allowed to touch the book, and he's not allowed to read it for himself. He just gets to know what this guy tells him as he's going. And so something happens, they get separated, and he runs into somebody that he has heard about from the Book of Three, like a hero. And so he kind of starts traveling with him. And so it's just about this little boy's adventures as he's learning things about the world that he's living in or grows up in or whatever, and about the heroes from the stories and were they real and what was real and why can't he read the Book of Three or what's in the Book of Three really. So somebody commented and said on my Instagram when I wrote my review of it, she commented and said that her kids were 11 and 12 and they went on a road trip and they listened to this whole series on audio on the road trip. I think that would be perfect. Like, that seems like a perfect age group to fall in love with these stories. So I highly recommend it. If you've got middle graders that love the epic kind of fantasies, this would be great. And finally, the last book that I finished this week is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I also noticed that her last name is Claire and the main character in this book is Clary. Anyway, this book had some really good characters in it. It also had some really annoying things go on, but what it did have was a twist that I did not predict. It is very rare that I read a book and I don't think something's going on. Like, as a matter of fact, in this book, in chapters 1, 2, and 3, so we're discussing this one over on the Bookstara book club page. This is their every other month book that we're reading, this series. And so everything's broken into 3 chapters, chapters 1 through 3. At the end of chapter 3, I went over and wrote in there and I said, I'm predicting right now something I think. And I was right about it. And I was like, oh, I figured out the big twist all the way at the beginning. Absolutely not. That was not the big twist. I think it might be that she gave us that little twist with enough hints in there for us to figure out that when the big twist came, I was just like, okay. I was blown away by the twist. So this book was good. It was not great, but it was good. And it was a good setup for the series. So I will be keeping on with this series. We're not reading any of it in March. We will read the next book in this series in April. So stay tuned for that. Y'all, that is a lot of books. And I feel like I have read so much and I still have a very long list of books to read, which is amazing to me because, I mean, I know that I put a lot of books on my TBR, but it's usually not too many. Like, usually I can finish them. I'm not going to finish them this time. So let's talk about what I'm currently reading. I'm still reading The Sea by Iris Murdoch, and this is part of the 1001 books. That's next month is War and Peace. This month is The Sea. And I'm reading The Brave by James Byrd. I picked it up from the library. It was my middle grade, I think, cover. Maybe it was a pretty cover. I can't remember why I got it. It was one of my card picks, but anyway. That one I'm currently reading as well. I just started it. I'm only on like page 2. So I don't know much about that. The Sea I'm really liking, but it's just long. So it's taking me a while. All right. And then what's coming up next is my next in-depth book, which is Imitation in Death. And then I'll be doing Amy's Game of Life. The book pick for that is The Accidental Apprentice for February. And so I'll be reading that one. That's a middle grade book. So I don't think that it's going to take very long. So that's what I had. That's what I read this past week. That's what I have coming up next week. And that's what I'm currently reading. Thank you for watching all of that and listening to all of those. I tried to go fast, but not too fast. So hopefully it wasn't too fast for you. Let me know if you have read any of those or if you are reading any of them. I know that there are some people that are still reading some of those that we've been reading in different Discords. So that's another thing. Check all the Discords below if there's something that you want to chat with other people about when we read them, and just in those Discords in general. I don't keep up with everything that's going on in all the Discords, by the way. I go to the things that I'm discussing and some of the other little channel things that I want to talk about, and everything else I just mute because that's all I would do all day is spend time trying to catch up on all the Discord things. So I don't do that. Don't think that you have to do that either. You pick the ones that you're interested in. You check in with those when you can. Otherwise, you don't have to be there. Like, it'll be fine. So that is going to do it for today and for this weekly wrap up. It's been long, hasn't it? Next week will not be as long, so I probably won't have as many books because I'm starting it today and I will be filming it on Friday. So it won't be a whole week this time. I think that's going to do it for me for today. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.